What happens when a young man drowning in student debt confronts Elon Musk with nothing but a dream? The answer will leave you speechless and might just change the way you see generosity forever. Jacob sat in his tiny studio apartment in Tacoma, Washington, staring at his laptop screen. The glow of the screen illuminated the numbers that haunted him: 76,350. His student loan debt. It was a number that felt less like a balance and more like a sentence, anchoring him to a life of constant struggle. He rubbed his temples, the weight of it all pressing down like an iron hand. How was he supposed to climb out of this? Jacob was no stranger to hard work. Growing up in a working-class family, he'd always believed that education was the ladder to a better life. He'd taken out loans, sure, but they were supposed to be an investment in his future. Graduating with a degree in engineering should have opened doors, but instead it left him at the threshold of opportunity. With no key job interviews came and went, but the offers never seemed to match the promise of his education. And then there was the relentless ticking of time each month. Another bill came due. His dreams of working on groundbreaking technology, of creating something that mattered, felt increasingly out of reach. The debt wasn't just financial. It was emotional, too. It robbed him of sleep, of joy, of the belief that he could ever be free. Scrolling mindlessly through social media, Jacob stumbled upon an announcement. Elon Musk was scheduled to speak at a public event in Seattle. His heart skipped. Musk wasn't just a billionaire or a tech mogul, he was an icon of innovation, someone Jacob had admired since his teenage years. Musk had once said, "When something is important enough, you do it, even if the odds aren't in your favor." Those words had inspired Jacob during late-night study sessions. Now they sparked a wild idea. Could he approach Musk? Would he even listen? Jacob wasn't sure, but he knew one thing: he had to try. He couldn't let this moment pass without doing something. What's the worst that can happen? Jacob muttered, closing his laptop and reaching for his coat. The thought was equal parts nerve-wracking and exhilarating. Maybe this was his chance to change everything. The crisp morning air in Seattle buzzed with energy as people gathered outside the venue where Elon Musk was set to speak. The line snaked around the block, a mix of tech enthusiasts, students, and curious onlookers. Jacob clutched his ticket tightly, his heart pounding in rhythm with the footsteps around him. He wasn't just here to listen, he was here to be heard. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. The auditorium hummed with the anticipation of Musk's arrival. A large screen displayed highlights of SpaceX launches and Tesla breakthroughs, reminding everyone of the genius they were about to witness. Jacob found his seat near the middle of the crowd, his mind racing. What was he even going to say? How could he condense his entire story into something compelling enough to catch Musk's attention? The lights dimmed, and a wave of applause erupted as Elon Musk walked onto the stage. He wore his signature understated outfit, black jeans and a leather jacket radiating the cool confidence of someone who'd already changed the world multiple times. Musk began speaking about sustainable energy, AI, and the future of humanity on Mars. His voice was calm, measured, and full of vision. Jacob barely registered the words. He was rehearsing his own in his head over and over again. "Mr. Musk, my name is Jacob, and I know too formal Elon. I'm a young engineer with too presumptuous." His palms were clammy, his stomach twisted in knots. The Q&A session began, and microphones were passed around the audience. Questions ranged from insightful to amusing, but Jacob barely noticed his chance was slipping away suddenly without thinking. He raised his hand, a spotlight swung toward him, and an usher handed him a microphone. The crowd quieted their attention now on the young man standing nervously in the middle of the auditorium. Jacob's voice trembled as he began. Mr. Musk, my name is Jacob. I'm a recent graduate with a degree in engineering, and he paused, swallowing hard. I'm drowning in student loan debt. I've always dreamed of working in tech, of contributing to something bigger than myself. But the truth is, I can't even see a way forward right now. The room was silent. All eyes were on Musk, who leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. Jacob took a deep breath, his words spilling out. Now you've inspired millions, including me. I know you don't owe me anything, but I had to take this chance to ask, how do you keep going when everything feels impossible? The microphone felt heavy in his hand, the weight of his vulnerability exposed to hundreds of strangers. The silence stretched, and for a moment, Jacob thought he'd made a fool of himself. Elon Musk's gaze locked onto Jacob's, piercing. Through the crowd's murmur, the air felt heavier. The auditorium, now still enough to hear the faint rustle of someone shifting in their seat. Musk's lips curled slightly, not quite a smile, but enough to suggest intrigue. That's a tough question, Musk said, his voice calm yet deliberate. He leaned back slightly, pausing as if weighing his response carefully. What's your name again? Jacob, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. He tightened his grip on the microphone, bracing himself for whatever was to come. Well, Jacob, Musk began, there are two ways to deal with the impossible. You either chip away at it until it's no longer impossible, or you find a way to completely reframe the problem. But before I give you advice, Musk gestured to the microphone in Jacob's hand. Tell me, what do you want to do with your degree? What's your big dream? The question hit Jacob like a lightning bolt. He hadn't expected Musk to engage this deeply. I've always wanted to work on renewable energy technology. Jacob said, his words tumbling out. I want to create solutions that make green energy affordable for everyone. But right now, it feels like I'm stuck just trying to survive. Musk nodded thoughtfully, his fingers steepled. Debt can be suffocating, he said, his voice carrying a tinge of empathy. I've been there too, maybe not student loans, but there was a time when I was borrowing money to keep Tesla and SpaceX alive. Sometimes, all you have is belief. Belief in your vision. Belief in the people around you. But here's the thing. Musk leaned forward, his voice lowering slightly. If you're passionate enough, survival isn't the end game. It's just the beginning. The crowd seemed to hold its breath. Jacob felt his heart pounding. His cheeks flushed. He could sense the collective anticipation around him. The unspoken question hanging in the air, would Musk do something extraordinary? Tell you what Musk said. Finally, his voice cutting through the tension. I'll pay off your student loans. The audience gasped, a ripple of shock and disbelief spreading through the room. Jacob froze, unsure if he'd heard correctly. You're serious? He stammered, his voice cracking. Musk nodded on one condition. He added, raising a finger. You commit to using your education to make a meaningful impact on the world. You can't waste this opportunity, agreed. Jacob could barely process the words. His mind raced with images of freedom, of finally being able to chase his dreams. Without the crushing weight of debt, agreed. He managed to choke out tears. Welling in his eyes, the crowd erupted into applause, the sound washing over Jacob like a wave. Strangers clapped and cheered, some even standing. The moment felt surreal, as if he were floating outside his own body as the applause died down. Musk added, Don't make me regret this. Jacob, do something great. Jacob nodded, his voice too thick with emotion to respond in that moment. He wasn't just a man burdened by debt. He was someone with a chance to change everything. The ride back to Tacoma felt like a dream Jacob couldn't wake up from. He replayed every second of the encounter with Musk in his mind. The weight of the moment. The crowd's thunderous applause. Musk's piercing gaze as he uttered, Do something great. Those words weren't just a challenge, they were a mandate. The next morning, Jacob woke up to dozens of missed calls and notifications. His phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from old classmates, distant relatives, and even complete strangers. A clip of his exchange with Elon Musk had gone viral, spreading across social media like wildfire headlines. Read, Elon Musk wipes out young engineers' debt on one condition. Jacob's inbox was flooded with interview requests. News outlets wanted to know more about the man who had moved one of the world's most influential figures to such a profound act of generosity. But amidst the chaos, Jacob knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let this moment slip away. Musk had given him more than financial freedom. He had handed him a responsibility to live up to his potential, determined to make good on his promise. Jacob dove headfirst into his dream of working in renewable energy. He reached out to contacts networked tirelessly and even cold-emailed professors and engineers he admired within weeks. Doors that once seemed bolted shut began to creak open a leading clean energy startup in California. Solar Nexus invited him to interview. They were impressed by his story and his relentless drive. The interview felt like a blur. By the end of it, the CEO looked at Jacob and said, "You've got the passion we're looking for. Welcome to the team." It was the break Jacob had been waiting for, a chance to work on cutting-edge technology that could revolutionize the way people accessed clean energy. Jacob's new life at Solar Nexus felt like stepping into a world he'd only dreamed of. The company was a hub of innovation, bustling with engineers and visionaries committed to creating affordable, sustainable energy solutions. Jacob threw himself into the work, spending long days and sleepless nights tackling problems that once felt insurmountable. His passion was contagious, and his story had made him somewhat of a celebrity within the company. It wasn't long before his impact began to show. Jacob spearheaded a project to develop low-cost solar panels designed specifically for underprivileged communities. He collaborated with a diverse team, pulling ideas from colleagues who shared his vision of accessibility and sustainability. The project gained traction quickly, and within a year it was set to launch as Bright Start, a program aimed at providing clean energy to low-income households across the country. As the launch date approached, Jacob was invited to speak at a major renewable energy conference in Los Angeles. Standing on stage before thousands of attendees, he spoke not just about the technology, but about the journey that had brought him there a year ago. He began, "I was just a young man, overwhelmed by debt and doubt. Today, I'm here because someone believed in me and gave me a chance. But this isn't just my story. It's proof of what can happen. When we invest in people," the crowd erupted into applause, a standing ovation that felt eerily similar to the one he'd received from Elon Musk's audience months earlier. As he stepped off stage, Jacob spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Musk was there, watching quietly from the back of the room. He gave Jacob a single nod of approval before disappearing into the sea of attendees. The media quickly picked up on Jacob's continued success. His story inspired countless people, from students struggling with debt to seasoned professionals, questioning how they could contribute to something meaningful. Discussions about higher education funding, student debt, and the importance of mentorship took center stage across social platforms and news outlets months after the launch of Bright Start. Jacob's project was making headlines. Low-income families in cities across the country were seeing their energy bills cut in half, thanks to the affordable solar panels his team had developed. Testimonials poured in from people who could now save for their children's education, buy healthier food, or simply breathe a little easier. At the end of each month, Jacob couldn't have imagined the sheer scale of the impact. What surprised him most, though, was the ripple effect beyond the energy sector. Other companies began launching similar initiatives inspired by what Bright Star had achieved. The conversation around student debt also gained traction. Policymakers and private organizations alike began exploring solutions to support young talent weighed down by financial burdens. Jacob's story had become more than a viral moment. It was a movement. But through it all, Jacob remained grounded. He often reflected on that pivotal moment in Seattle, the courage it took to raise his hand, and the life-changing words that followed. He remembered Musk's condition, that he used his education to make a meaningful impact, and felt both proud and humbled to have honored it. On a quiet evening, Jacob received an email from Musk. The subject line read, "Not bad, kid." The message was brief. "Keep going. The world needs more dreamers who act." Jacob smiled as he read the words. It wasn't just encouragement. It was a reminder that his journey was far from over. Jacob began mentoring young students in engineering programs, sharing his experiences and offering guidance to those who felt trapped by debt or uncertainty. He started a scholarship fund using part of his earnings to help aspiring engineers afford college without falling into the same financial traps he had faced. For Jacob, this was the true fulfillment of Musk's challenge to make the world better, one step at a time. In his speeches, Jacob often ended with the same message: your dreams might feel impossible, but don't let that stop you. Take the chance. Raise your hand, Ask the question, you never know who might be willing to listen, as the credits rolled on his viral story. One thing was clear, Jacob had not only freed himself from debt, but had ignited a spark of hope in millions. His journey proved that with courage, hard work, and a little kindness, one moment could change everything if Jacob's story moved. You think about the difference you could make in someone's life, whether it's through mentorship generosity or simply believing in someone's potential. And if you're inspired by this journey, subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of possibility.